A lot of people move to a city because they see one number: cheaper home prices, cheaper rent, or lower taxes. But life is never truly cheap. It just changes how it charges you. In some places, you won't get taken down by crime, you'll get taken down by rising insurance, brutal commutes, thin job markets, or weather that ambushes you every single year right on schedule. This video breaks down 13 places in the US you should never move to in 2026 if you don't have a solid plan. Not because they're bad in every way, but because the risks there are really good at pretending to be normal. And the most dangerous trap is always the one that looks reasonable. Number 13, Memphis, Tennessee. Memphis, Tennessee looks like a bargain when you first scroll past it. The home prices look friendly, around $141 grand. Average rent sits around $1,200 if you are coming from an expensive metro that feels like somebody finally left the side door unlocked. But let me read you the moving invoice people do not see until they are already unpacked. First line is the safety tax. In 2024, Memphis showed up in national comparisons with roughly 2,500 violent crimes per 100,000 people. Property crime was around 6,900 per 100,000. For context, the U.S. average that year was roughly 360 violent crimes and about 1,760 property crimes per 100,000. So no, it is not that every street is chaos. It is that you start living with extra steps. You plan where you park, you plan what time you stop for gas, you plan which errands are worth doing today. That mental load costs money, even when nothing happens. Second line is the system strain fee. When a city has to fight hard for stability, the vibe can feel tense for a while. You can be doing everything right and still feel like you are always watching the room. Third line is the income reality check. The Memphis metro unemployment rate was about 4.4% late 2025, so jobs exist. But in Shelby County, the median household income was about $65,000, and the poverty rate sat around 18%. Translation: a lot of people are working and a lot of people are still squeezed. If you move here for a fresh start, it can quietly turn into a slow grind where the ceiling feels low. To be fair, Memphis also reported real improvement in 2025, including about a 27% drop in major Part 1 crime and murders falling under 200. That is meaningful progress. I just think the city's body language changes slower than the stats. Personally, that gap between better on paper and still stressful in your day-to-day is what would make me hesitate. Number 12, Honolulu, Hawaii. Before you move to Honolulu, Hawaii, just know you are not really buying a beach lifestyle. You are signing up for a subscription, and the fine print is where people get cooked. Pop-up number 1, housing. The average home value is about $757 grand. Average rent is about $2,900 a month. Median household income sits around $105 grand. Do that math for 2 seconds and you realize rent alone can swallow about a third of your income before taxes even show up. That is not cute island living. That is, every paycheck has a timer on it. Pop-up number 2, electricity. Hawaii's residential power price is around 42 cents per kilowatt hour. The U.S. average is closer to 17, so the same habits you had on the mainland, the same air conditioning, the same laundry routine, can cost you way more here. It is not that you cannot afford fun, it is that your bills become louder than your plans. Pop-up number 3, food. Hawaii imports roughly 85% of its food. Translation: groceries come with a built-in delivery fee that you cannot cancel. And even recently, food prices in the Honolulu area have been up about 3% over the year. It sounds small until you're paying island prices to begin with. Pop-up number 4, distance. When you are 2,500 miles from the mainland, "I'll just move again" is not a casual thought. Shipping, flights, time off work, it all turns into friction. Personally, I get why people want Honolulu. It is stunning. It also has this sneaky way of making you work twice as hard just to feel normal. And that is how paradise turns into pressure. 11. Las Vegas Valley, Nevada. Your first postcard from Las Vegas Valley is gorgeous. It is January. You are drinking coffee outside, the sky looks photoshopped. Everyone tells you no state income tax, you're gonna save money. You look around and think, wait, why didn't I do this sooner? Then July shows up and mails you the second postcard. In 2024, Las Vegas hit a record about 112 days over 100 degrees and around 36 days over 110. That means normal errands turn into a strategy game. You do groceries at sunrise. You keep a water bottle in the car like it is a seatbelt. Your AC stops being a luxury and becomes a life support subscription. And while you are trying to get used to the heat, the valley is also doing long-term math on water. Federal projections put Lake Mud in a 2026 shortage condition range, roughly around 1,050 to 1,075 feet. The region is proud of its conservation. Per-person water use is down about 55% since 2002. That is good news, but it also tells you the vibe here depends on rules and restrictions, not endless supply. Now for the part that catches people off guard. Vegas is not the cheap city people remember. Zillow has the typical home value around $421,000 and average rent around $1,920 a month. Hey, if you move here without a stable plan, that rent will eat your runway faster than the Strip eats your weekend. And the whole engine is tourism. Las Vegas welcomed about 38.5 million visitors in 2025, and the airport handled nearly 55 million passengers. When that machine runs hot, jobs feel easy. When it cools off, a lot of paychecks feel it first. Personally, I love Vegas as a visit. Living here is different. Vegas does not punish you for dreaming. Vegas punishes you for arriving with no buffer. Number 10, Greater New Orleans. Louisiana New Orleans has two calendars. And if you move here in 2026, you need to know which one is actually running your life. Calendar 1 is the one everybody posts. Mardi Gras dates, Jazz Fest, Saint Season, late nights, loud music, food that makes you forgive your own bad choices. On that calendar, moving to Greater New Orleans feels like choosing joy. Calendar 2 is the one nobody puts on Instagram. It is the water calendar. And I do not just mean hurricanes. I mean the kind of flooding that can show up after a hard rain, the kind of flash flood day that turns normal streets into a slow-moving mess. Scientists have also warned that parts of Greater New Orleans are still sinking fast, in some places more than an inch a year. That sounds boring until you realize what it means in real life. The same rain can hit the same neighborhood, and next year it can flood worse because the ground is literally dropping under you. Now here is the part that makes people regret the move. The biggest bill is not always the mortgage. In Louisiana, private home insurance costs jumped more than 40% from 2021 to 2024, from roughly $3,700 a year to about $5,400. And in parts of southern Louisiana, some homeowners see quotes that can hit around $14,000 a year. That is not a little bump. That is a second rent payment hiding in your mailbox. So even if you find a house that looks affordable on paper, like around the mid-200s, the real question is, can you afford the calendar you cannot control? And then there is the basic life stuff. The city has had boil water advisories often enough that it is basically a normal phrase. That is not scary in a movie way. It is exhausting in a grown-up way. Personally, I love New Orleans as a place to visit. Living here is different. The culture is a yes. The unpredictability can be a no. Because in the long run, the water calendar always wins. All. Number 9. St. Louis, Missouri. St. Louis is a city where one wrong turn can change your whole opinion of the place. That is the real problem. It is a zip code city, not a city. Here is the trap. People hear St. Louis and they think it means one big, even map. It does not. The city boundaries basically froze back in the 1800s, so the stats people argue about online often describe the city proper, not the whole metro. And when you shop for housing, That difference matters a lot, because St. Louis can look like a steal. Typical home values sit around $177,000. Average rent is about $1,300. You see those numbers and think, wow, I can finally breathe. Then you realize why it is cheap in some areas. St. Louis has a serious vacancy problem. The city has talked openly about more than 24,000 vacant parcels, including over 9,000 vacant buildings. When a block has that many empty spots, it changes everything. Fewer neighbors outside, less eyes on the street, more stress about your car, your garage, your front steps. And yes, there is progress. Local reporting said 2025 homicides were about 141, the lowest in roughly a dozen years, and overall major crime was down around 16% from 2024. That is real, but here is the part people miss. Improvement does not erase unevenness. You can live in a part of St. Louis that feels totally normal. You can also live 2 miles away and feel like you are constantly on alert. Personally, that is what would make me hesitate. I do not like gambling on my daily routine. St. Louis is not hopeless. It is just a place where the deal depends on picking the exact right pocket, and most newcomers do not know the pockets yet. If you move here, you are not just choosing a city. You are choosing a very specific set of streets. Number 8, Phoenix Metro, Arizona, July 6th. You text your friend, "We made it. Phoenix is beautiful. The sky is unreal." July 12th. Same friend asks, "So how's the new life?" You stare at your phone, Mike, because the honest answer is, you've basically started living indoors. 2:03 p.m. You get in your car and the steering wheel feels like it's trying to brand you. You remember reading Phoenix had stretches like 31 straight days, over 110 not long ago. And in 2024, it hit about 113 straight days at 100 or more. You thought, okay, but I'm tough. Then you realize toughness doesn't pay the electric bill, and it definitely doesn't make a parking lot feel normal. 3:40 p.m. You send another text. Why is everything so far? Because Phoenix is wide, not suburban wide. More like every errand is a drive, wide. And when it's that hot, every drive becomes a plan. You don't casually run out for one thing. You stack stops like you're playing a survival version of Tetris. Next morning, you're house hunting again, just curious. You see typical home values sitting around the low $400,000, and rent that can land anywhere from the mid $1,500 up toward $1,800 depending on where you look. The old Phoenix bargain story starts sounding like a rumor from 2016. Then comes the weirdest part. Water. Not no water tomorrow, but the kind of background anxiety you didn't have before. You hear about tighter groundwater rules for new growth on the edges and it hits you. You didn't just move to a city. You moved into a long-term negotiation between growth and reality. And that's the Phoenix vibe in 2026. Gorgeous, growing, full of opportunity, but the fine print shows up in your calendar. If your fresh start needs breathing room, Phoenix can feel like it keeps the air on a meter. Number 7, Bakersfield, California. If you move to Bakersfield, California in 2026, here's a weird question you should ask yourself first. How much does it cost to breathe? Because Bakersfield has a hidden starter pack nobody mentions when they're selling you the cheaper house. You move in, you unpack, and then you end up buying air purifiers like they're furniture, not because you're dramatic, but because the air here can be rough. The American Lung Association's 2025 report ranked the Bakersfield-Delano area number 1 in the country for year-round particle pollution and also number 1 for short-term particle pollution. And it still landed near the top for ozone too. That is not a small, sometimes it's hazy problem. That is a lifestyle problem. You start checking the AQI like it's the weather. You plan walks, you plan workouts, you plan when the windows are allowed to be open. And the valley geography doesn't help. The San Joaquin Valley is basically shaped like a bowl. Pollution builds up. Truck traffic, diesel equipment, farm work, all of it stacks. Some days the sky looks normal, and then you realize the distance just looks washed out, like the whole city is under a gray filter. Then the heat joins the party. In July 2024, Bakersfield logged about 24 days at 100 degrees or higher. So even when you want to get outside, the outside is basically a hairdryer. That pushes you back into the AC, back into higher bills, back into a life where fresh air feels like a limited time offer. And here's the part that makes it risky. The job market can be shaky. Unemployment around late 2025 was still close to 9% in the Bakersfield area. So if your plan is, I'll move there and figure it out, Bakersfield can make figure it out feel expensive fast. I'm not saying nobody should live here. I'm saying if your dream is a healthier, easier life, Bakersfield is a place where the cheap price can come with a daily tax you feel in your lungs. Number 6, Verde Foothills, Arizona. If you ever see a real estate listing in Arizona that should come with a warning label, it's Verde Foothills. Picture the ad in your head. Quiet desert views, big sky, close to Scottsdale. Sounds like the dream, right? Now imagine the line they forget to put in bold. Water not included. A lot of homes out here aren't on a normal city water system. People live with big storage tanks and water deliveries like you're permanently almost camping, just with a mortgage. And here's why it matters in 2026. This place already lived through the nightmare version of that setup. Scottsdale used to let residents fill hauled water at a city standpipe, and then the excess got cut off starting January 1st, 2023. Over 1,000 people suddenly had to scramble just to do the most basic thing a house is supposed to do: have water. Now, yes, there's a more permanent solution rolling in tied to EPCOR and a new fill station. But listen to how that sounds in real life. It's not turn on the faucet, it's not. It's a fee plus usage plus rules. EPCOR's posted pricing includes about $75 a month, plus around $16 per 1,000 gallons for full service. And depending on your home, you may still be paying a hauler on top of that. That's the part people don't feel until they move. Your water becomes a subscription plus logistics. You start thinking in gallons. You start timing showers. You start wondering what happens when there's a policy change, a drought squeeze, or a delivery bottleneck. At one point, the area even talked about lotteries for access, which is wild when you're talking about something as basic as water. Personally, I think this is one of those places that looks peaceful until you realize peace doesn't come from views. It comes from reliability. And in Verde Foothills, the biggest risk isn't crime or traffic. It's the fact that your house can be beautiful and still not fully connected to modern life. Number 5, El Paso, Texas. Imagine you move to El Paso thinking you're getting a quiet, affordable corner of Texas. Mountains, sunshine, good food, slower pace. And honestly, it can feel like that. Right up until you realize this city runs on a border clock. Monday morning, you leave the house and everything looks normal. Then you hit the lanes near the bridges and you understand what border city really means. In 2024 alone, this region saw roughly 13 million northbound passenger vehicle crossings, about 6.5 million people walking across, and around 840,000 commercial trucks. That's not drama, that's daily life. Your commute, your errands, even when you decide to go grab groceries, it all quietly depends on flow. Now fast forward to afternoon. The heat stops being background and becomes the main character. El Paso set a record in 2023 with about 70 days at 100 degrees or higher, including 44 straight triple-digit days, so you start living in time blocks. Early morning is do life. Midday is survive. You don't casually walk the dog at 2 p.m. unless you enjoy punishment. Then the wind shows up. And with it comes that dry, dusty feeling that makes you wipe your car and wonder why it's dirty again 5 minutes later. The El Paso to Las Cruces area has been ranked around the 15th worst for ozone smog, so some days the air just feels sharp, not scary, just irritating in a way that stacks up over months. Here's the part people don't say out loud. El Paso can be affordable with typical home values around $230,000, but affordability doesn't automatically mean easy. If you move here to reset your life and you don't already have a solid job plan, the city's rhythm can wear you down. Not because it's unsafe, because it's demanding in quiet ways. El Paso is a place that works best when you already know your routine. If you're hoping the city will give you peace on day one, it might hand you patience instead. Number 4. Bozeman, Montana. Before you move to Bozeman, Montana in 2026, I want you to do a quick friend test. Like pretend your best friend is about to move here and you have to stop them from making an expensive mistake in under 1 minute. First question, are you moving here with big money or are you moving here with big hope? Because Bozeman prices don't care about hope. Zillow has the typical home value around $700,000, and recent median sale prices have been reported closer to the mid-$700,000. Some local reporting has even talked about the broader Bozeman area flirting with $1 million median. That's not small-town mountain life. That's resort pricing with a college, town, zip code. Heck, second question, are you renting first? Cool. Can you handle rent that lives around $2,000 a month, sometimes more? Because this is the part that surprises people. They come for nature and end up budgeting like they moved to a coastal city. And if you don't have a high-paying remote job, that monthly number starts feeling like a treadmill you can't step off. Third question, do you think low unemployment means it'll be easy? Gallatin County has had unemployment around 3%, which sounds great. But jobs exist and jobs pay enough to live here are two different sentences. A lot of the work that keeps Bozeman running is service work, local business work, essential work, and those wages don't magically match housing that expensive. Now add the sneaky stuff. Growth has pushed traffic and commuting pressure, especially on peak routes and ski season corridors. And Montana beauty comes with Montana smoke some years. Even a couple unhealthy air days can feel personal when you moved here for fresh mountain air. Personally, I get why people fall for Bozeman. It looks like a postcard you can live inside. I just think in 2026, Bozeman is a postcard with a price tag, and that price tag has gotten louder than the scenery. Number 3, Bend, Oregon court is now in session. Case name, Bend versus your budget. First witness is the realtor. They walk in smiling. Bend is mountain air, trails after work, breweries on the weekend, and that small town feeling with big scenery. Sounds perfect. Everyone in the jury nods, then your wallet takes the stand. It clears its throat and says, typical home value is around $716,000. Rent is about $2,200 a month. And suddenly, the room gets quiet. Because Bend isn't priced like a sleepy town anymore. It's priced like a resort where people accidentally live year-round. If you're moving here for a cheaper, fresh start, this is the moment your new life starts looking like a subscription you can't cancel. Next witness is your paycheck. It says, jobs exist, sure. Unemployment in the county has been around 5% lately. Then it adds, but a lot of local work is service and seasonal, and it doesn't always match a housing market that expensive. That's the squeeze. You can be employed and still feel broke. Now your lungs show up with receipts. Bend is outdoorsy until wildfire smoke decides you're an indoor person. Over the last decade plus, the area has had roughly 100 days where the air quality was bad enough to feel it, including dozens of truly unhealthy days. You move here to run trails, and some summers you end up running an air purifier instead. Final witness is your yard. It says, welcome to odd, even watering days and no watering during the hottest hours. Not a disaster, but it's part of the fine print. Bend is beautiful, but it runs on rules when resources get tight. Verdict: Bend isn't a bad place. Bend is a gorgeous place that can quietly drain you if you arrive, hoping it will be cheaper, easier, or lighter. I love visiting Bend. I just wouldn't move here unless my income already fits the price tag. Number 2, Youngstown, Ohio. You open Zillow and see typical home values around $67,000. Your brain immediately does the math. So, I can own a house and still have money left? You start picturing a fresh start with no landlord and no stress. Then day 30 shows you why it's that cheap. You drive through neighborhoods where the city is still cleaning up the past. The county land bank was demolishing 300 plus problem houses in 2024. And local reporting says a demolition program has knocked down roughly 1,100 structures overall, with about 70% of them in Youngstown. That's not a one bad block situation. That's a city still trying to remove the rot so anything new can grow. Day 60 is when the money story flips. Because the real issue isn't just the house price, it's the income floor. Median household income sits around 34 grand and the poverty rate is around 37%. So even if you personally have a solid job, you're moving into an ecosystem where a lot of people are stretched thin. That shows up in the everyday stuff: property upkeep, local services, the feel of certain streets after dark, the sense that momentum is hard to build. Day 90 is where people either commit or start planning their exit. And here's the tricky part. Youngstown does show signs of improvement. Local reporting said recent homicides dropped, something like 11 in a year versus 25 the year before. That matters, but improvement doesn't instantly change the cheap for a reason reality. Personally, I don't think Youngstown is a place you move to just because it's affordable. It's a place you move to only if you already have a strong plan, a stable income, and the patience to pick the right pocket of the city. Because in Youngstown, the house can be cheap, but rebuilding a life around it can be the expensive part. Number 1. Boise, Idaho. All right, let's unbox Boise in 2026. Not the postcard, the actual starter pack. First thing in the box is the Affordable Escape sticker. Cute, except the numbers don't match the sticker anymore. Typical home values sit around $490,000. That's not California insane, but it's also not the old Boise bargain people still talk about, like it's 2015. Next item, the rent receipt. Average rent is hovering around $1,800 a month. So if your plan is I'll rent first and save, Boise can still hit you like a monthly punch, especially if your job isn't already locked in. Then you pull out the big one, the housing shortage note. Boise's own housing analysis says the city needs about 2,000 homes a year for the next decade, and almost half of that need is for affordable housing. Translation in normal English, a lot of people are competing for the same normal price places, and a lot of families are already stretched. Next in the box is a Welcome Everybody's Moving Here card. The Boise Metro saw a net migration of roughly 72,000 people from 2020 to 2024. That's why the vibe feels tighter. More competition, more pressure, more "why is this waitlist so long?" energy. Then you find the car keys, because Boise is still a car city and people are driving more. One analysis showed Boise City's miles driven per person jumped about 58% compared to 2019. So even if traffic isn't big city awful, you're paying in gas, time, and being tied to your vehicle. Finally, the surprise bonus item, an air quality pamphlet. Between wildfire smoke and winter inversions, Boise can get those air stagnation days where the sky just sits heavy. I like Boise. It's a great place when your income fits the new Boise. But if you're moving here hoping for the old Boise, the box opens and the math gets real fast. If this list felt harsh, good. Moving is expensive and pretty on paper can turn into "why did I do this?" way too fast. Here's the simple 30-second check before you pack a single box. Can your income realistically cover housing, transportation, and the hidden costs like insurance, healthcare access, heat, smoke, storms, or long commutes? And if things go sideways, can you leave without losing everything? I'm not saying these places are hopeless. I'm saying they're risky if you show up unprepared. Comment the city you're considering next, and I'll do a quick risk check on it.